Hey, what's up, everybody? Maxwell's World. I had on my mind for like at least a few days, maybe a few weeks, a thought and a video in mind, and the voice in my head just keeps getting louder, and that I need to make this video. I feel like it's a pretty good topic. I feel like I haven't heard of it talked on a lot, not to say that it has not. So I'll just get right to the point. So, I mean, as people, as humans, we're all different. We're all walking different places. Um, and some of us go through similar experiences. Um, as a human, as a person of color, as a not a person of color, as a man, as a woman, as intersex, as non binary, as biologically male, biologically female, etc. So we can understand each other to certain degrees, or think about a time where, I've gone through that similar feeling or experience, but for different reasons. And so I'm really making this video for people more specifically aimed at, you can put it to any human experience or the human experience, but more aimed at people in transition, gender wise. You know, if you had surgeries, if not, if you get your name changed, if not, if you change your pronouns, not, or even if you stay closeted as a trans identified person, a non binary person, etc. I'm a transgender man, so I'll talk more on that topic. I think it's safe to say that those correlate with the non binary experiences, but I can't speak on that because I don't, um, that's not my journey. Um, so when I first started transitioning, with transitioning, it's a lot going on. It's super complicated, and there's things that pop up that you can't really plan or expect, and then you kind of find yourself with a barrier in front of you, whether it's social barriers, your own mental construct of a barrier, whatnot, what have you. Um, and by that, I mean a small example, like when I started a transition, like in the first few months, I thought I was going to go to Las Vegas for a friend's bachelorette party. Now, she invited me to it knowing I was transitioning and knew who and what I am. And so it wasn't like, I see you as something else and I'm inviting you to this girl party. She invited me knowing and respecting my way of life, and was just like, if you want to come, please do. I want you to come support and have fun with me, type thing. So I said, yeah, sure. Um, but then I realized, like, I remember it so descriptively. I was standing outside of one of the restaurants I worked at, and I was really stumped. It was like 10 in the morning, maybe 9. It was before my shift, so somewhere in the morning. And I showed up early as I normally do, and I was just like, oh, fuck, like, how is this going to work out? What am I going to do in the airport? Like, I have an ID that says one thing, but my other documents say something else, and I don't want to, be outed or have any hassle or complication at the airport. And so that was a big moment of just like, I don't know how to navigate this at all. And with trans gender resources and information, there are some out there from like Malaya Martin and the Transgender Law Center, but I didn't know a lot of trans people in real life. I had a support group that held me through a lot in my darkest hours, and just like times where I was really having a hard time coping and dealing with certain experiences, and everything it brings. And so then I started hitting up that support group and asking people how to navigate it, and it kind of smoothed itself out. I did not end up going to Vegas because the vacation kind of um, dissolved. And then also I figured out, I don't think my pockets could have handled it financially. It was a lot more than I expected, so I didn't go. But I found out it didn't happen anyway. So that was like one of the times. But yeah, the more important of the point of this video really is like, so at the beginning when I started this, before T and even a little after getting on testosterone, HRT. and having facial hair, I wasn't passing yet, as that word is called. And I had to fight a lot more about the correct pronouns being used. Um, Off the clock at work, I didn't come out like that. I changed my name on my name tag, but I wasn't ready to like have that talk with them because they were racist and white supremacist, closed mind, and they were just shit talking people. So I didn't feel safe like going about that. They did not have a HR department, so I didn't have anyone like in the middle between me and the owners of the store. So I was just like, mm-mm. Some of the staff had said some things that was like stigmatic and discriminatory of trans people, specifically trans men. So I was just like, nope, this doesn't add up. And so in the beginning, before top surgery, before I started getting facial hair, even when I got facial hair, but I was just the feeling so strong of no one is ever gonna love me, or I'm not gonna be able to get in a relationship, or you know have a marriage or anything like that was so strong. And I mean, a part of that was my own feelings, but it's also a part of the narrative that you hear from people in the LGBT community. And some of that I feel is digested um, discrimination and internalized hate messages that you get from social media and from people in the moving world, and just like all the poo poo people who like to crap on people that are not cis, that are not white, that don't fit in the binary or live in the binary and not the norms, so. And that felt so real. And at the time, I would look around on the support groups and look on trans people, specifically trans men's experience, and just like also them reinforcing like I've been trans and um, came out and been living my truth for like 5, 10 double digits years, and the disparity of like finding relationships is so hard, and or finding love and etc. And barely stories, success stories of people having partners or wives or husbands or whatever it is that they want to date. And it was pretty devastating. And I know that every community has this type of experience, but unfortunately, this isn't to make it seem like, oh, poor us, we have it worse. It's just like it's a little bit rougher when you're in the LGBT community. And, you know, I mean, I never did think to look up like trans men that have partners or relationships or blah, blah, blah. But I just remember feeling like it was gonna be that way forever, and I was unlovable. A new form of unlovable that I had that I had encountered before. I had that feeling over different things over my life, but this one hit more in the core of my being than anything else. And so I started to make a profile and do little dating apps and stuff, and try to figure out, do I put myself in the men's section when people look, or do I put myself in the women's section so that way women could see me? Even though I really fall on the chart, I think, of pansexual, but regardless, like, and so I was hearing a lot from lesbian women or queer women that, like, oh, there's lesbians and there's queer women who date trans men and they like trans men and it's fine. So I put myself in the women's section so other women would see me. Because at that time it felt like too much to take on if I put myself in the men's section, which I am, and they're seeing me, and then they hit me up, and then if it gets to a point of like intimacy and things like that, it makes me feel less than, or it made me feel less than, like, oh, I don't have the size package biologically in which you're normal or accustomed to. So I felt like it was an automatic, this is gonna shut down, and they're not gonna want to mess with me. Also, back then, I was very selective on disclosing because I didn't have the thick skin yet, nor the practice of trial and error to figure out when, for me, it's appropriate to disclose. At first, I was like, I'm only going to disclose if, you know, I know I'm going to be in a relationship with this person, or we're going to go on more than one date, or if it's going to go to something sexual. That's when it makes sense, because until then, it really doesn't make sense. I don't know where this person stands, and I don't know if it's safe. So safety first. A lot of people in the world consider that a cop out, but when you are a target of society, you have to make sure you're safe. Forget what anyone else says. So disclose when you feel comfortable. Um, that's what my 2 cents on that is. Um, and so, yeah, but as time went on, I continued to go on these dating apps, not having much success, but also like figuring out learning curves and things. But the point of this video is no matter who you are, what kind of person you are, you can always find friends that care about you, love you, and support you, partners that care about you, love and support you, family members that love and support you, whether that's your blood family or chosen family. Because sometimes we have to pick other people because the people that are flesh and blood can't meet us where they're at, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I know this all sounds obvious. I don't say this in a way to where I don't think people know this. This is more to the message of those people that may be in this now, even if you're not trans. You're totally worth it. You're totally enough. You know, um, you just have to figure out where your boundaries are, what feels good for you, what does not. And sometimes you're not going to have the energy to advocate for yourself when it comes to pronouns, when it comes to boundaries, when it comes to your truth. There are going to be days, potentially, I'm speaking from my experience, let me keep it like that. There were days, more often than not, where I wanted to fight up and stand for myself, but I just did not have the energy to do it because when you're countlessly coming out over and over and over again as trans, it is very taxing. It's not a complaint, it's just a reality. And so you only have so much capacity to rip and running. Plus, it's a lifelong thing because you're going to run into people that you've known before transition and after transition that may know you by your other name, your birth name. They may have known you by the assigned sex at birth, and all these things. So everything is kind of case by case scenario, but just know that you will get stronger for that and all those things said. And then also, it's okay to have advocates and allies kind of do some of the brunt and grunt work for you. I've had friends in the past to where, I go to AA and things like where people have misgendered me and I just cannot get it out that, hey, my pronouns are this or this and that. Some people figured it out and was like, hey, are you still going by this name? Other people that I had that were friends, when someone would misgender me or say some not so nice things, they would say like, hey, I will talk to them and tell them that your pronouns is this, or they would get upset for me. Like, that's not cool. They're not respecting you. I'm going to tell them what's up, in a respectful way. They didn't come at them sideways. And I appreciated that. I didn't even ask for it, but I was so grateful because there's just some times where you're going to need that net of people or that one person to say some things you may not be able to express even though you want to express it. So that's really all I have to say. It's really been burning in my mind a lot. So I just wanted to put that out there. I myself now, have had encounters with people in a platonic way, not a platonic way, a casual way, and, found people that affirm me, they validate me. They also see me for who I am, so it's not me trying to convince anybody or like la la la. Like if they can't or having a hard time with it, we usually just drop it. I'm not for everybody, and that's perfectly fine. I do disclose right away now that I'm trans when it comes to my profiles. It's right there, so that way it doesn't have to have these talks later on. It kind of nips it in the bud. People know what's up from jump, and then they either continue to bark on whatever type of bond they want or not, or sometimes they do and they have questions. Sometimes I answer those questions. Sometimes I say, hey, there's a plethora of information out on internet, Google, YouTube. Watch it, because I'm not always one to want to educate. Also, that also gets tiring. It's also like when you educate people on white privilege, or white supremacy or racism or oppression. Like, it gets kind of tired when you're the person that experience is about. Like when I went to school, and they were talking about statistics about trauma and like substance abuse and like suicide and like all these things. It was like hard for me to hear because it's an old narrative. It's what I've heard all my life, and I've gotten more awoke to or awakened to, of like, People, Native Americans, they had experienced this on the reservation, like statistics, percentages. African Americans, doop doop doop. They go down the list. Asians, doop doop doop, da da da, and it's just like, you know. So same thing kind of qualifies for this. So I mean, since then, yeah, I've had a lot of experiences. I've had people like me, not like me sexually, and not. I've had people accept me for where I'm at, what my body parts are not. I'm in an open relationship now. I have two partners. They are trans and also non-binary, um, and that's been great. It wasn't something I was seeking, but it happened. And what I mean by that is like a relationship. I had been single for like 4 years, just working on myself before transition and then after transition, and just working on trauma, making myself more healthy with sex again because I am a rape survivor, I am a domestic abuse survivor, I am a suicide survivor. So there was a lot I had to unpack in those years of sobriety. Um, and so just getting familiar with my body, what's comfortable, what's not, boundaries, triggers, talking to people about like, hey, these are red flags, this may come up, having surprise things come up, and things like that. So you totally can get to a place to where you have people love you and accept you for exactly who you are. They're not asking you to change, and depending on what they're asking you to change, they may not be the best for you. That may not be the person you need to be with, because if you're with someone that makes you feel like shit for who you are, or try to closet you, or shame you for not wanting to do something they want you to do, or to do something you want to do that they don't like doing, that's a red flag, and you may want to consider like looking at it. But at the end of the day, you have control of your life and who you let in your circle. And with that, sometimes friends, families, partners, they turn against you. They cut you out of their life. They may send you into distress. They may send you into crisis, because you consider these people safe, and they attack your whole existence, whether you're trans, non-binary, black, white, whatever, have mental health things, live with mental health ailments, etc., etc. The list goes on. But more aimed specifically at this, you kind of have to be selective on who you share your things with when it comes to the trans experience sometimes. Not always, because there's allies and people who are totally down with it. In America is like the number one place where like genders is like a very strong thing. In other countries and people I've talked to from other countries, they say, I don't understand this masculine feminine thing and the misogyny, because where I'm from, like, everybody's just everybody. You can be two-spirit, non-binary, all these things. It may not be those terms, but people really don't care for those titles, and people are just living their life. Not to say that they may not have hard, not to say that they don't have hard experiences, but people just don't focus on this stuff as much as in America. So it is a cultural thing as well, because in so many cultures, indigenous and not, different existence and different presentations inside and outside are welcomed. It's not a thing. LGBT people have been around since the beginning of time. There is, gay animals, gay creatures, etc., etc., blah, 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 blah. So, with that, I think this is the longest video I've made ever in my little YouTube career. So, if you watched all this, great. And I hope that this, resonates for somebody that needs to hear this. I know probably I needed to hear it when I was at the beginning of my transition. And I remember somewhere down the line in my transition, even before I had partners of any kind, sexual or not, relationship or not, I was telling people on the little support groups, like, you know, we can find love, because I think I was seeing a couple of trans people, have love, And on the topic of trans women, I mean, their experiences is even harder because, from what I hear and what I see too, like, people hypersexualize them, only want them for sex, and don't really want to have trans women, a lot of them, in relationships. But with that, there are people that do have relationships with trans women and women in general, so like, they can you can have love too if you're a trans woman or a non-binary person or intersex person. You're totally capable, you're totally worthy. We all are worthy of having love and connections with people, however that manifests. So If you fall under that category too, this goes to my trans sisters and all my other brothers and sisters and family relatives. Like, you're totally worth it. Give yourself a shot. Open your mouth when you like people and it feels safe that you want to go on dates with them or be their friends. It's totally worth it because I know I've like shot myself in the foot, like not giving myself a chance on people I've liked in the past, and then like things kind of burn out and we have a talk, and then them saying like I would have totally given you a shot, and so that fell into my self-esteem issues um, that I had for a long time. So I made a pact that like, hey, I'm gonna speak on when I like people and give it a shot because you never know. So it could be someone that you prefer intellectually, physically, spiritually, whatever. Fucking go for it is what I say. Life is short, and we only got so many days on this earth, and we don't know when our time is up. So go for the gold, man. Go for the gold. Don't let fear win. Sometimes it does, and that's okay too, because we're only human. When those times come where you feel like, man, I wish I really told that person how I really felt. Man, I wish I really set that boundary with that person that hurt my feelings or violated me. Man, I really wish whatever that sentence follows after that, just try to be gentle on yourself and be compassionate and forgiving to yourself, because most likely it's going to be emotional tailspin and you're already in hurt sad feelings, or I'm already in hurt and sad feelings, and so it's a lot easier for the negative talk and the criticism to seep in. So don't always believe your mind when you're sad. That's one of the things I saw so many years ago, and I've been reminding myself of that recently, because it doesn't mean it's all always true. So with that, one love, Maxwell's World. My GoFundMe's at 355. I got the total I need is 2,450 for Meta. The 21st, I have an appointment to talk to those doctors, so we'll see how it goes. All right, yo, peace out. Hey, my uncle. Hey, Art.